Welcome to the Not Badger for the week ending August 27th, 2016. Here, thanks to our indentured Ronin, who are indebted to us thanks to a loophole in the Code of Bushido, we have compiled a collection of funny, interesting, and hopefully useful clips from our most watched shows. Enjoy the spoils of their hard work. In Polecat Cast number 76, we look at the stories of the week, including banning the word man at Princeton and an experiment involving a boy, a girl, a cat, and a dog.
Over on a website called, I don't know how to pronounce this, Mercatornet or Mercatornet.com, there is a lady named Laura Perrins keeping it real. She wrote an article in response to statements made by Mary Curnock Cook, the head of the Universities and Colleges Admission Service in Britain. She urged the teenage boys receiving A-level results to apply for higher education due to the increase of female applicants and decrease of male applicants. Quote, "I have a special shout out for young men who might be dithering about going to university. Whatever you study, you'll come out of the experience with a much clearer sense of your future self and full of ideas about how to make the most of your life career." There are unconfirmed reports that after she left the stage, she snickered the following under her voice, quote, "You will also be 40,000 pounds in debt and likely have a newfound sense of self-hatred for being privileged cisgendered males. We will update the story if and when we receive confirmation of this quote." TheDailyMail.com placed two children, a 6-year-old boy and a girl, as well as a dog and a cat, at different points inside Manhattan's Washington Square Park. They are there as part of a social experiment to pretend as if they are lost and scared. The end goal of the experiment is to see which of the subjects would be quote-unquote rescued first. The Daily Mail described the results of the test as both shocking and expected. The 6-year-old girl subject, Carly, was tended to first after just 3 minutes. The woman who approached her described the experience as follows. "I was watching the playground and I saw her standing by herself, and then I looked around to see who was with her and I didn't see anybody. So I went over and said, 'Are you okay?' And she said that she couldn't find her mom." The dog was rescued after 4 minutes and 36 seconds. He was left to wander the park with his leash attached to him. The woman who caught him said the following, "He just looked lost and scared. If I were to see a child, I would have done the same thing. I think that's just our job as human beings to do that." The cat was left sitting in the middle of the park sidewalk in a cat kennel. It took 10 minutes and 17 seconds for somebody to stop. The woman who took notice said the following, "When I saw the animal carrier with an animal in it, I was very upset. It's hot." The 6-year-old boy subject was not approached at all, after 45 minutes of sitting cross-legged in the park. At one point, he began to ask for assistance, but he was ignored. When his mother was asked to make sense of this, she said the following, "I'm not surprised that people don't stop. This is New York. It's busy. Everyone is deep in their thoughts and phone conversations, and it happens. I think it would be great to live in a place where everyone looks out for everyone else's children, but that's not what this city's all about." It is unknown what her thoughts are about the results garnered by the other participants.
Yeah, it's an experiment, but it's not a definitive one. That's not something that you can look at. Like you said, it's not something you can come to conclusions on. They'd have to duplicate it a lot. And then the other problem with it is there are extenuating factors. They put them in different parts of the park, which may be attended by different groups of people. Different parts of the park are going to attract different folks from different areas and everything. And, the other thing is, it doesn't sound like they asked anybody why they didn't stop. Like, with the experiments that were done on, men hitting women and women hitting men in public, a lot of people were stopped and asked, "Why did you walk by? Why did you stop?" So on. Like the one experiment where the lady walking by sort of celebrated that the woman was hitting her boyfriend, or her apparent boyfriend. They asked her why she did that, and they got an answer from her. And it doesn't sound like the same was done here.
In a not-so-shocking display of ignorance, Bobby Finger, writer for everyone's favorite feminist gossip rag, Jezebel, can't seem to wrap his head around the title of recent sci-fi adventure game, No Man's Sky. The title of the game is a play on the colloquial term No Man's Land, which means an area of unoccupied or unexplored land disputed by one or more factions due to fear or uncertainty. The play on the term works well for the game, as it's all about exploring uncharted planets and engaging in space battles. But don't try to mansplain this to Bobby. He's already made up his mind that the title is instead distasteful, offensive, and shamelessly anti-feminist, and that it's a consequence Jezebel will not be reviewing or even playing No Man's Sky. I'll stop you there, Bobby. Nobody wanted you to do so in the first place. In fact, if you and the rest of Jezebel would stop covering video games altogether, I'm sure a lot of us who actually enjoy the medium would rest a bit easier at night. Instead of using the word man, employees are told to use words such as human beings, individuals, or people. Other guidelines, instead of man and wife, they have to use spouse or partner. This is mainly for the staff and faculty, it seems. Switch out man-made with artificial, handmade, or manufactured. Don't use the verb to man, as in to work something. Instead, use to operate or to staff. Throw out workmanlike and replace it with skillful. The memo goes on to list a variety of occupations that typically include the word man in them and offers replacements. Business person instead of businessman, firefighter instead of fireman, ancestors instead of forefathers, and so on. Consistent with style guidelines issued by Princeton's Office of Human Resources and Office of Communications, and as endorsed by the Industrial Equity Planning Group as a preferred university practice, HR has developed these gender-inclusive style guidelines to be utilized by all HR staff members in HR communications, policies, job descriptions, and job postings, the memo states. In a statement to the College Fix, John Kramer, Princeton's Director of Media Relations, and the guidelines reflect the university's initiative of fostering an inclusive environment.
There are people doing this for a very specific reason, and it's like, I hate to be all tinfoily, but it's like, it seems like feminists or whoever is perpetrating these kind of things are doing this to belittle men. It's like where they're gendering things that are not gendered. It's a compound word made out of human and worker. It's so weird to me. The whole concept is just so odd. I know it sounds kind of tinfoily, but it's like there's a concerted effort for people to do this kind of stuff.
If we were to tell these people that there's an entire language, a mainstream language out there that is built upon this, what would they do? Would they just give up, or would they try to reinvigorate that language entirely just so that it can be politically correct? And the answer that they would give, in my opinion, would indicate in tangible terms how insane they are.
It's bad to use gendered terms now. Well, eventually that's going to turn around, and it's bad to not use gender terms because you're denying people things. Whether it's you're denying women the ability to describe their femininity, you're denying the differences that make the gender special, whatever it is. 10, 15, 20 years from now, people are going to decide that this was a bad thing for the same social justice-y type reasons that they decided it was a good thing and a necessary thing, and not doing it was a bad thing.
So you go, all right, well, what do you want to do to fix this? And they go, well, not use any words for black or white people. But you just said you can't fix anything by not seeing colour. Oh yeah, but we can fix things by not letting the language see colour. What? Yeah, replace race with gender and it's the same fucking shit.
And that's what sort of the civil rights movement did. That's part of what the civil rights movement did in the United States, was focus not so much on the terminology that people were using or, the way somebody might be looking at somebody else, but on humanizing each other to each other, getting people to understand that we're all dealing with other people in the world, and that we're not as different underneath as our differences in customs and our differences in styles make us look. And it's kind of cool that if we can get along and actually work together to build something and not make those mistakes in dealing with each other. Mm-hmm. But we'll never do that as long as we focus on shit like this.
If you're committed and you're going to go into medicine, or you're going to go into engineering or hard science and something that requires a great deal of education, I think that college is the way to go. And I think that people who are smart enough that want to do those things, they're going to be really choosy about what college they go to that's going to best serve their needs, and they're not going to end up taking a bunch of humanities courses that are going to do nothing except turn them into professional victims. But I'm talking about the person that is just out of high school and they're just being told that college is the next logical step because reasons. You have to consider, is college worth the money? Because the education that you've gotten thus far, if you went to public school, has probably already been subpar.
The idea that to make good money, you have to have a degree from a 2-4 year university or get a master's or a doctorate in something, it's just not true. And if it's just about the money, then you need to look at not what degrees are more profitable specifically, but what the job market says is more profitable. And then when you find out what jobs are more profitable, you trace back and then you find out what kind of an education you need. And a lot of times you may find out that you don't need nearly as much as you thought you did, or the same type that you thought you did.
This is basically like trying to take fan fiction and make it professional by artificially boosting it up, and one of the ways they're doing it is by taking the moral high ground and saying, look, H.P. Lovecraft was a great storyteller, but because we're going to judge the man on the kind of person he was at the time, much like that one awards ceremony that removed the H.P. Lovecraft award, where it was like because, oh, well, he has a history of being a racist or whatever, so we need to essentially wipe out anything that he's done of any value, and we can't separate the man from his work, so, this is the same thing. They just want to re-envision it. And for me, I agree with Scott. It's either going to succeed or fail on its own merit. I say go for it, have fun, but don't pretend that what you're doing is something more than fan fiction, because that is all you're doing. And what fan fiction is taking someone else's work, someone else's creations and ideas, and then just putting your spin on it. And you're allowed to do that.
I mean, like, are they appropriating it?
Yeah,
yes.
You could say that they're appropriating
it. Fan fiction is cultural appropriation.
Yes.
I have another thought on this too.
Oh my.
These feminists that are appropriating Cthulhu culture because they hate H.P. Lovecraft's morality, are they going to abandon all of the works of Germaine Greer since she was a pedophile?
No,
she'll be eaten last.
In Ermagerd cast number 79, game developer David Jaffe joins us as we talk about the ways women are represented in media and how feminist theory is a part of the problem. We have a hard time watching women suffer. We just do. It's just in our biology. We're wired to, when you see a woman crying in a restaurant and you don't know why it's happening and she's alone at a table somewhere, there is an urge to get up and find out how she's doing. If a man is doing it, we're uncomfortable for a different reason. This is just in general, but this is just the way things are. So there is a difference between the way we perceive male suffering and female suffering. One of these things is harder. It's just like children. We never see, well, hardly, I won't say never, you hardly ever see kids getting killed in films because it's really hard to look at. It's just difficult. So if we do it, we just try to find a workaround, or we never do it most of the time because people are uncomfortable with it. And I think the same thing, but to a lesser extent, is the case with females. So there is that. And yeah, I think that that's a sexist thing that we gotta get past. On the other side of the coin, though, if you go the other way, there's a bit of a girl power aspect to it too, where the writers and directors and producers, the studio, whatever, they feel the need to overcompensate. And so what they do is they make the woman the most, the strongest, the fastest, the smartest, the most clever, and the most morally righteous person in the product. And it's usually because they're overcompensating it. Even if they do give them some flaws, they usually end up overshining. And the problem with that is that there's no tension, because the people watching, the people who are experiencing the product, they don't feel like there's anything at stake because this woman can do everything. There's like nothing to be afraid of. People, writers, directors, producers, whatever, they obviously, I would never say you can't do this thing. Obviously. They should be able to write whatever they want, and that's fine. I think that what I'm analyzing or looking at is, it seems that there are challenges when you are doing this more heightened stuff, or whether it's, because I have some examples, and they range from thrillers to horror films to action movies, and some of them are even dramas that have some action in them. And they all have really good examples of female characters. And there are traits that they have that seem uncommon in other media. And I think that's probably got more to do with the fact that the people who are doing it well are relatively exceptional directors, writers, and even actors or actresses. But so
how do you define doing it well, though? Like, I mean, a lot of people cite Ripley.
I think we'll have
and say,
to,
she's a great female character. But what is it? Are you saying it's well because it is a reflection of society, and most sort of genre films don't reflect that, or are you saying they're doing it well because they're creating a female character that is aspirational. I mean, what's
Well,
good about some of those examples?
Well, I think if I can interject briefly, I think in the context of doing it well, where we're sitting from is probably one, a matter of taste. And because I think for both me and Brian, we like things that explore the deeper interactions, that look at gender and explore how we perceive it and maybe surprise us. And so in our sense, I think me and Brian are looking for things that are a bit more unique, like not standard portrayals of gender, but something that's a little bit more different.
Yeah, either
it's not necessarily that either or is worse or better, but I mean, from an aesthetic point of view, it's more like it's just more interesting to see something that sort of challenges the stereotypes and the cliches.
At no point does Tom Cruise from the Mission Impossible movies say, because I'm a man, I'm going to do X. It's got nothing to do with the fact that he's a man. He just does what he has to do. Nobody walks away saying, I like that movie with that man in it, because he was a man in that movie. They just like the movie. So the staff and the team that make it, they can't rely or use the fact that there's a male character in the film to try to sell the film. They have to just make a good film. And I would like that to be the case for more films that star female characters, because I want them to make better quality products that star female characters without making the fact that they're female characters the reason why you have to like the product. It's like, one other example I can give you that's not related to gender, I'll go with race instead. Have you ever seen the movie Blade?
Yeah, with Wesley Snipes?
With
Sure.
Wesley Snipes, all right. Did you like that movie?
It was okay. I mean, I saw it when it first came out. It's kind of forgettable. I liked it because it was a Marvel comic movie, but that was it.
Yeah. So I love that movie Blade. And you know what it was, like came at an interesting time because, there weren't really a lot of comic book movies. I think that there was sort of like a drop-off of interest, and that sort of like Blade kickstarted the whole comic book franchise thing. It was the first one that basically started the whole trend, and we went into X-Men and Spider-Man after that. But if you watch the movie Blade, the character is black. But if you watch the movie Blade, the fact that he's black never once comes up in the entire film. Nobody treats him differently because he's black. He doesn't have to make a statement, or, he doesn't have to kill any, like, KKK vampires. He doesn't have to do any of that. He's just Blade. Everyone respects him for what he is able to do, for what he does, and what his purpose is in the story comes before the fact that he's a black guy.
I think what we like, me and Brian, is when the general schema of how we approach male and female characters is played with, something that happens a lot in fiction, that we'd like to see women react, we'd like to see men act, or maybe shake it up a bit and do something a little different. Yeah, I think with Ripley, there was a very good line. I think this is why she was iconic. It wasn't necessarily that you could do the same thing with a male character, because with a male character, expected a lot more than just survival from him. But with Ripley, because you could get in there and get into her skin, the fact that she survived and to do it despite all of the shit that was going on around her created a story that you could actually follow. If you put a man in the role of Ripley, I'm not sure if it will, because we wouldn't have gone into her reactions as much. We wouldn't have been as open to her reactions to things. And you were talking about that, Jaffe, when you talked about stories that really are how women react to things and what they're going through while they're experiencing all the events around them.
Personally, I'm cautiously optimistic about Wonder Woman, but not because it's Wonder Woman, but more so because of Warner Brothers' track record thus far. But if they pull it off this time, I think that what would make Wonder Woman a great film would be to look at its parallel, not necessarily to copy it, but just to look at it for ideas. Like Wonder Woman would be, according to what I see in the trailer, she appears to be the most powerful person in the film, because she's fighting in World War I against, the Kaiser or whatever, and I don't really see any super enemies. So if she is the strongest person, then she won't be able to express, we won't actually like her if she's simply dealing with enemies that are nowhere near her level. So instead, if you do that, which you can do, because the Christopher Reeve Superman from 1977 was like that as well, you would just have to focus on her other traits, like her humanity, or her kindness, and her honor, maybe she has like her other behaviors, in order to make her attractive and appealing to people. Maybe she would have to take a risk that actually has a potential consequence to have us feel tension, because it's another thing that's often missing from films that star female protagonists, often, not always, is that sense that, oh shit, she's not going to make it, or she may not make it out of this situation, because she is in a situation that puts her at a great disadvantage, and she has to take a great risk in order to get out of it, as one example. So I think that they can do it without making Wonder Woman look masculine. Will there be critics that will complain? Inevitably, yes, no matter what. But
they'll complain no matter what.
They'll complain no matter what. But
no matter how Wonder Woman is approached.
And I do think, and I don't know if you're saying this, Dave, so correct me if I'm wrong or chime in if you think so, but I do think that because this film is called Wonder Woman, it's probably got a great deal of pressure built right into it to be great, because it's a film about a woman. And not just that, but the first sort of superhero film about a woman in recent years. Not since, I don't know, that really awful Catwoman movie with Halle Berry from a while back has there been one like this. So I think that people are looking really close because they really want this to be good because it stars a woman. But I don't think that's really fair, because I think that, that's putting undue pressure on something that you should just be focused on hoping that it's good just because it should be a good movie, and not simply because of the gender of the protagonist.
I guess all I'm asking is, even though I understand that as far as we know, Wonder Woman is the most powerful character, blah, 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 maybe that'll happen, maybe that won't, maybe they'll introduce a supervillain that can kick her ass. We don't know that. But ultimately, what I'm asking is, if there is an on-the-nose message of female empowerment that runs through the movie Wonder Woman, would you guys find that pedestrian and problematic? Because ultimately it's A, too on the nose, and B, potentially not even, it's potentially condescending. That's what I'm trying to get from you guys.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so if the answer is yeah, then my question is, how do you get someone who isn't as sort of immersed in the waters of this topic as y'all are, because you're saying an audience is intelligent? Do you think just naturally they would respond to the characters the way that you would want them to be written, or do you think they need to be sort of gently dragged through this education process?
No, I don't think so.
I don't believe in education processes, but like I was saying, that's the reason why I used Judy Hopps as the example of what I'm talking about. I consider that Judy Hopps to be the epitome of recognizing a woman as a moral agent and respecting her as a moral agent, not just as a victim of the people or the society or the circumstances around her, but someone who has a powerful effect on them. I don't the problem is that I think also the language that you're using, I don't think turning female characters into victims of circumstance, society, and other male characters is empowering. I think
where do you get the sense? A, where do you get the sense I'm saying that? And B, do you have an example of someone who's not a rabbit?
Someone who's not a rabbit who's...
Well, this may lead to Brian's video clips, I'm curious.
Yeah, I can show the video clips of how it's done well, but I would add one other thing too. I do think that people are starting to get tired of being preached at in their media, in their films and television. So it depends on how you approach it. And I think one of the reasons, this is why I mentioned Agent Carter before, Agent Carter plummeted insofar as ratings goes. And it happened in the second season very sharply. And I think that one of the main reasons was that girl power message was just too loud, it was too obvious, and it was too on the nose, as you put it. And I think that it's not just frustrating or annoying for people like us. I think it's annoying for most average people, and especially women. I think that a lot of female viewers, they want to watch something, and if it has a woman in it, they want to see them done in such a way that they're not being treated with kid gloves and constantly reinforcing the girl power message and constantly, being told that this is made for you and you should feel really good about this and look at how progressive we're being and all that. I think this is the reason why Agent Carter failed. I think this is the reason why Ghostbusters failed. It's not because I didn't see it. But I'm not passing judgment. But when you look at the sales numbers, considering how hard they were pushing it and how much of a girl power centric message it had, it didn't make any money. And women do go to the movies, so they didn't want to see that movie. So you have to ask yourself, why not? And, from people that I've spoken to and the circles I travel in, not just on this show, but, other YouTubers and people in my personal life, a lot of women had no interest in it, and part of it was the fact that it just felt so preachy to them, and they were just tired of it. And they just want good products. Like, they just want to see something good, and if it happens to star a woman, that's great. But if you oversell the girl power part, I think you'll actually turn off more women than anything else, because women don't like being pandered to. Now for Honey Badger Radio number 68, where we discuss the recent growth of men's sheds in Australia and compare them to safe spaces.
The social justice warrior safe space is kind of, as you described, a place to avoid confronting ideas that somebody can't handle, and a place to sort of demonize everybody that's not in that space. But in clinical terms, it's something different, and it's a concept that came out of group therapy. And the idea is, okay, you've gone into group therapy, some sort of group therapy or group self-help or whatever, for the purpose of getting to the bottom of a dysfunction that you want to correct in your life. So you have to be able to talk about that dysfunction without being judged as immoral for having it, or being judged as stupid or wrong or whatever, because you need to actually be able to address the dysfunction, talk about the causes, figure out what you can do to get past it or get over it or learn to live in spite of it and things like that. And an example of this would be like Alcoholics Anonymous. And I know there's a lot of criticism and a lot of love for Alcoholics Anonymous, but in a space like that, when somebody falls off the wagon, and they talk about, I had this happen, I did this, it was a mistake, now I'm going through this experience. Instead of having everybody go, oh, you terrible drunk, what the fuck is wrong with you, shame on you, blah, 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 it's, what have you done to get through this problem? How has it helped you? So it's a non-hostile environment. And there we go. Faith is abdication said it. Faith is abdication of reason says non-hostile environment. Now that's very, very different from the social justice warrior safe space, because the social justice warrior safe space exactly the opposite. It's an incredibly judgmental environment where you can't say anything, and if they consider something to be abnormal or dysfunctional, instead of you being able to talk about it and get through it and say, okay, well, what's wrong with this? How do I deal with it? What do you do to correct this in your life and things like that? It's the silent treatment or the cascade of shame from all around you, and you silence yourself as opposed to actually working on it if it is a problem. And things get treated as problems that are not. For instance, if you have questions about somebody else's culture because you don't know about their culture, of course you're now a racist because you asked a question that you genuinely didn't know the answer to. In a safe space, that person might be protected from having anybody act like they don't know everything about them already and accommodate their sensibilities. So in terms of like men's sheds being a safe space, some of them, the therapeutic ones, the clinical ones, may be safe spaces, but they're not safe spaces in the social justice-y sense of the term. They would be safe spaces in the clinical sense of the term, where you go in there specifically for the purpose of self-improvement, working things out, or obtaining assistance, or learning to deal with something that you aren't dealing with as well as you would like in your life. And in that instance, or in that vein, I think they're actually a really good thing. Because you really can't solve problems by shoving them under the bed. You can't solve problems by stuffing them in the closet, to use a well-used metaphor there. And you certainly can't solve problems by sticking your fingers in your ears and going, la, 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 I can't hear you, there's nobody there. You talk about them, you examine them, you look at the causes, you look at potential solutions, you assess which thing would be the best solution or the most effective solution or the solution that causes the least amount of damage in its implementation. But you don't ignore things, you don't push them away, you don't use shame to cover those things up. And the term safe space has almost become a pejorative because of the way social justice warriors have used it. And I think it's actually kind of sad, because it's a very valuable, useful tool in the course of helping yourself and helping other people to live their lives in a way that is the most socially peaceful and the most functional within society and the healthiest.
I'm seeing them use the idea of a safe space as sort of like this way of judging the rest of the world and saying, all of you have to be like this safe space. And we get to define the conversation that happens in it, and we get to define what's problematic, what's acceptable, and enforce all of that on the rest of the world, because the rest of the world is unsafe. In the two ideas that you were presenting, Hannah, was on the one hand, you have a space where you're allowed to speak and say what you need to say, but in the context of becoming more able to handle the greater world. Not judge the greater world, but able to live within it and learn the coping skills or do the necessary work to heal whatever is compromising your coping skills. But the safe space that you're talking about is more like a healing space where you learn to heal and you learn to cope with the greater world, not judge it for your inability to cope with it. And then there's the safe space model, which is basically the world is a bad place that nobody should have to cope with. So we're going to create a space in which we expunge ourselves of all of the worldly sinful influences and live a pure life. It's like, that's very religious.
When you have a so-called safe space designed to help cooperation, like sort of Boy Scouts, or it's any of the clubs boys go to, like karate or boxing, whatever, they don't find themselves segregating to each other rooms because they have problems with each other that they can't sort out. Whereas the safe spaces that feminists make in universities and whatever institutions they invade, it's not long before the occupants of said safe space demand separate safe spaces from each other within that. Because that's what they mean by safe. They don't mean they want a place to help them cooperate. They really do want a place to help them exclude one group from another group. I mean, school itself is kind of supposed to be a safe space. So, no, well, maybe not universities, but schools certainly are supposed to be, to some degree, safe for children. But it's all one space. You don't start segregating them to different parts of that building just because of fees. I mean, that's called detention.
I think that the best way to look at the difference between a social justice safe space and a space for which people go to maybe deal with experiences, is that one of these things often exists with the goal of fixing or helping to repair some damage so that that person will be a stronger individual if they come across this trauma or something that reminds them of it again in the future. It's like, soldiers who have had PTSD, they may go to therapy sessions with other men to discuss their experiences, and the goal is that they will be able to better blend in with our society when they get out. Guys who are people who are rehabilitating from addictions, boys clubs, retreats for fathers and sons, or these workshops. The goal is to basically make it to where if there are problems or challenges in that person's life, when they're done, they will have learned how to actually better deal with those problems, if not outright conquer them. The social justice warrior version of the safe space isn't really about that. It's about essentially reveling in that suffering, in that victimhood, talking to other people that are simply going to reinforce to them the idea that the world is a terrible place and that they are amongst the small group of people that are the good ones that will essentially be there for them whenever they need hugs and cuddles and compliments, but not actually help them to deal with problems or even to see that maybe the things that they're retreating to a safe space for, they're not things that call for a safe space in the first place. I mean, just look at, is it Melody Hensley that got PTSD from Twitter versus an actual soldier that gets PTSD? This isn't about healing when it comes to social justice warriors. They're not trying to get better or recover or become stronger people. They want to revel in that victimhood. They like it. And I mean, I think you can get addicted to it. And safe space is just them sort of going to recharge their victimhood so they can go back out and remain on the moral high ground. Meanwhile, I think people who actually are looking to recover from something or learn something, and they go to a place that might either, teach them how to deal with their problems or build their character in some way. Their goal, I think, is to not need it anymore and be able to stand on their own 2 feet.
I predict that feminists are going to pretty much keep it so that society does not understand the need for this. until we hit a point of crisis where things are not getting done in the community, like big things like maintaining electricity, in the face of bad storms and stuff like that, because boys are dropping out of high school and not going on to trade school or university or things like that, because men are not able to gather together and figure out ways to deal with dysfunction and things like that, that it's going to have to hit that disaster point where men have either dropped out of society to go their own way or dropped out of society due to dysfunction that doesn't get addressed because of social justice warrior and feminist safe spaces and the attitudes that sort of leak out into the general public from those areas.
We might have to actually liberate the concept of a safe space from social justice warriors and bring it back to the idea that people are able to heal with an understanding that they're not on a crusade against the outside world. And maybe
on a crusade while on a crucifix.
Yeah, crusading on their crucifixes into the outside world. Well, so we redefined a safe back. Take the term safe space back from social justice warriors and return it to what it was meant to be, which is a healing space, and call what they have what they actually are. Safe spaces, as social justice warrior safe spaces, really sort of fall along that model of judgment and wanting to control. I guess that's another way you can tell the difference. The social justice warrior safe spaces seem to be about controlling the world around them, not living in harmony with the world around them. And men's shed, if they do anything with the world around them, men's sheds tend to try to improve it through projects or things like building, what are those things that kids play on? Playgrounds?
Playgrounds.
Yes. Building playground
equipment.
Yeah, playground equipment and other kinds of things like that.
Some of this stuff can be very challenging to read without taking it personally, but when you think about it, it's very interesting information and it's an interesting perspective, and it brings up some issues they're not necessarily false issues. They may not apply to everybody, but they're definitely things to consider. And one of them was this idea that most women never grow up. Like they don't intellectually, emotionally, and psychologically mature past where a boy would mature to at the age of 14, because they don't get hit with the degree of responsibility and accountability for themselves and the people around them that a boy gets hit with at about that age. And as he gets into high school, he starts being held accountable for what happens to the girls around him. And he starts being held accountable for not just their welfare and their well-being, but if he offends them and if something bad happens to him, other people aren't accountable necessarily for what they've done to him. He's accountable for preventing it, things like that. And they start talking about careers and everything. Girls don't have to have careers. It's girls are entitled to careers. Boys are expected to have careers, and if they don't have careers, they're not real men in the eyes of the people around them. So they actually have to establish themselves. And because of that, I think boys are encouraged to develop a sense of identity in ways, in fact, it's sort of thrust on them. You have to. You're required to. Girls aren't. They're allowed to adopt everything around them. They're allowed to immerse themselves in somebody else's life. They're allowed to base their sense of self on how people react to them instead of what they do in the world. And I think that's a dysfunction. I think the way things are for boys may be in some ways a little too harsh, and it may be that boys are having things dumped on them that they shouldn't be having dumped on them. But there's a degree to which that's also functional, as in, for them to make their way in society, for them to have success in their lives, for them to have the things they want when they get out of school, have the type of home they want, the type of family that they want, and the type of life that they want, they need to go through that. And I think it would be better for girls if they went through some of that too, instead of being, well, your career is an entitlement. You're entitled to go into STEM. You're entitled to work in a profession that's mostly male. You're entitled to become a firefighter, and we should lower standards for you if you can't do it. You're entitled to become ground infantry. Not, it's honorable that men have taken this responsibility, and only really strong women should even try to live up to that. But you're entitled to it because equality. That, I think, prevents a lot of maturing in women and girls, and I think it hurts their ability to understand accountability. It hurts their ability to understand mutual respect in a relationship, and it may even hurt their ability to understand mutual trust.
We can talk about how we can start squealing about, oh, misogyny, misogyny, misogyny. But observing that women who have their feet bound because it is the social norm and people find them more attractive when they have their feet bound because they can't walk very far, they stumble. Observing that is not misogynist. And this is what we are observing, that women, girls, are subject to a form of socialization that prevents aspects of their adult ability from flourishing. And the result is this lack of independence, like a healthy independence, the kind of independence that, like for me, I chose my husband. I chose him. That's my choice. And standing by that choice is an aspect of being independent. And, other people may judge my choice, but it was my choice. And that's that. And that's an aspect of being independent. And another aspect of being independent is not subsuming your being into that of a man entirely. Like maintaining your own interests, maintaining being an interesting person. It's like, I think men are entitled to have a partner they're not entitled, but they should have a partner that has something interesting to say. And I think that that's something that actually men, a lot of men that I talk to are actually interested in. They want a partner who maintains a certain level of independence. There's an independent quality that's different than being, a bitch or a cunt. You can maintain those separate interests. You can maintain your own personal time. You can maintain your own personal relationships. And you can be an interesting partner. And that could be part of why you do it, so that you don't become boring and you have something to say around the dinner table. And that's a good thing. And I think that when we point out these social factors or these social training that girls get to deny their own the effect of their actions on the greater world, that is a training that girls get to see themselves as victims, to see themselves solely in response to other people's actions, mostly men's. And the end result of that is that they lose independence. They lose the ability to be independent from their partner, so they cleave to him in some circumstances, or they lose the ability to be independent of other people's opinion of him and say, that's my choice. Fuck off.
I watched the whole speech. She spends 90% of the speech talking about how awful Trump is, and she throws everybody in with him. I mean, Vladimir Putin is his friend, the alt-right, the KKK. She just goes on and on and on. And at the end, she's like, we need to stop insulting each other and have discussions based on respect. and like, she ends it with a hug. Like, and I'm like, did you listen to yourself? Like, just now? And just, threw Breitbart in there with him, through just everybody. I mean, Milo's...
She's made Breitbart famous, by the way. Breitbart's, you're going to go through the roof now. Thanks so much, Hillary.
Yes.
Sounds like she was...
superstars now.
Sounds like she was really Putin on a show.
In Polecat Cast number 76 and 3/4, we bring on ex-SJW Ian Miles Chong to look at the Protein pill leaks at the Tolerant and Progressive Crash Override Network.
There were plans to basically go after people financially, monetarily, burn their reputations, stuff like that. If someone had a beef with someone, like, for example, Rob Unseen Perfidy, who I think you talked about before, the guy who was outed as having been a sex pest and using con as a cover to basically talk to vulnerable women, right? He preyed on women, got their docs and stuff. People like him, he would have a beef, for example, with say Thunderfoot, right, or Sargon of Akkad, and he would, he proposed to the channel, hey, can we do something about Thunderfoot? And they'd be like, oh yeah, let's nuke his Patreon, and that it was basically an organization where people came up with ideas on how to deal with so-called harassers on the internet. I mean, the truth is that, it's more to do with engaging your political opponents in a very underhanded fashion. It's not really like they call it a support group, right? And that's only part of it. Like, yeah, it is definitely a support group, and people did call in, like a lot of people who claim to be harassed or who were harassed by, on social media or in real life even. they would call in, join the triage channel, and talk about their problems. And maybe one of us or two of us or whoever would try to help them out with their problems, give them tips like use two-factor authentication, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And that was the front, right? That was basically the stated purpose. But behind the scenes, it was a chat room where people just, came up with ideas on how to deal with people they didn't like. If you didn't like Thunderfoot, then you came up with a plan on how to deal with him. For instance, the whole thing with 8chan, where there were like all these articles, saying that they hosted pedophilia and such. That was planned. That was a con operation, basically. Where all these writers, or at least the people who were writers in that channel, would find would use their outlets to basically publish a piece or promote a narrative. And that's why I'm a firm believer that whenever I see something going on, there's a narrative going on. It's not a coincidence, right? Like all it takes is usually one or two people to start a fire, and then it spreads, right? Like every other journalist will pick it up because they see a hot story, they see a news scoop, and so they pick it up too. And what Con would do is basically feed them this information, right? All this information to promote this narrative, and basically make the journalists' jobs easier, I guess. But what the journalists didn't know was that they were doing our dirty work, and I say our dirty work because I was part of that group, I'm annoyed by these people who, they take all these great games. Like This Is the Police is a great game, right? It's a very political game, and it's very intelligently written, and yet everyone in the press, almost everyone in the press, is panning it because, it does something problematic. It's like they play about maybe 30 minutes of it, see that it has something to do with racism, and they see that the developer isn't someone on their approved list of developers, right? It's not part of their circle, their clique. So they trash it, right? They shit on it, and then they say it's a racist game. And that's, that I've been seeing this for a long time, and I had enough of it, and I apologize to gamers. I didn't think it was fair to, just accuse people of being racist or sexist or misogynist or homophobes just because they didn't want to see certain things in games, or just because they liked certain types of games. Like if you like Final Fantasy 15, like yesterday I published an article about how fans of that game are being accused of being anti-women just because they like the whole, bro aspect of it. 4 guys on a road trip, a bro trip, so to speak. But yeah, so it's like, games like these are being played by men as well as women, and in Japan, women actually dig this whole idea of a bro trip. That's actually a woman-centric thing. Those characters are not gonna be, models for guys. Like a guy isn't gonna look at Noctis and say, oh, I want to be that guy. They see him as some sort of emo dude. They're not gonna look up to him, right?
No.
They don't want to. It's not a power fantasy at all. So I see this narrative being spun, and like I was tired of it. So I decided to leave. And as soon as I started speaking out more and more, like as the months progressed, they started like targeting me. Like I think it was Randy Harper and Izzy Galvez and a few of the other guys. They talk shit about me very publicly on Twitter and basically put me on a block list, right? Like Randy's private block list. And once you're on there, like some celebrities or known people will block you automatically, and they don't even know you. You don't even have to interact with them. You're on that list. And I understand why I'd be on their list, because I'm an annoying person to them. But a lot of other people who might have gotten to a small tiff, for example, with Randy, are they find themselves on that list too, and that's an abuse of power. That's not how a list should be run, and lists shouldn't exist in the first place. They don't serve any purpose other than to blacklist people. And that's a reality of it. Like they painted a huge mark on my back after I left because I started speaking out, and I said things that they didn't like.
I actually talked to someone. I think it was a bit after Gamergate started, and I don't want to say any names, but he sort of ran in the same crowd, and he came over to my booth because I was at the Sask Expo, which was run by the Calgary Expo people as well. And that was before they decided to kick me out and ban me forever. And he came over to my no reason. And he came over to my booth and he was like, I don't fear talking to you. I agree with all of the social justice stuff, and I would consider myself a social justice warrior, but I'm actually afraid of them, and I'm not afraid of talking to you. And I'm like, and he's
Exactly.
like, and there's this moment of self-reflection. He's like, I think that probably should tell me something, but it doesn't.
It doesn't. Yeah. They all think about it. Like, I mean, I don't know if it's in the logs, but you have people like Sarah Nyberg saying they hate social justice. Like because they feel censored. Everything they say is very explicitly doctored for a certain audience. They have to run it through a SJW filter, is what or mind kill themselves before they do it, as Arthur Chu would like to say. Mind killed.
What is the appeal, really? I mean, what is the appeal to be around a bunch of people that you're scared of, that you have to constantly walk on eggshells to assume opinions that you don't really have, and just and I don't feel that way around these guys. Well, yeah, actually, I do. Please save me from them. But no, really, it's like, why would you want to be part of that?
They find new things to complain about. Oh, this is problematic. Cultural appropriation. That's a beautiful one because it's very easy to label anything as cultural appropriation. It's a gold mine, right? Like anything can be cultural appropriation if you decide it as. If a white person eats sushi, oh, that's cultural appropriation. Never mind the fact that people in Japan don't mind it. This one guy who's Japanese, American Japanese, minds it, so therefore we must listen to him. Otherwise, you are, going against his lived experience. You're disrespecting him. And that's all it is. It's very performative. So it's constantly getting outraged about new things, and the people who disagree can't really say anything.
Just on the topic of fear, if you guys are willing to be in part of a culture that you're actually afraid of everyone else, there must be another fear that's driving that's even bigger, I would imagine. Like, so what is it that allows people to embrace the culture they're actually afraid of? What is that bigger fear? And this might be too speculative, too introspective to respond to, but I'm just curious about that. Any ideas?
Yeah, I would say fear of being irrelevant. Fear of irrelevance. A lot of these people are, for all intents and purposes, they're opportunists, right? Like even myself. I mean, like everybody is, right? To some extent, everybody is an opportunist. I mean, that's a very cynical view. Some people are not, I guess. But yeah, people don't want to be irrelevant. People don't want to be a part of nothing. They want to, people in general, I'm not saying everybody, people in general want to feel like they're a part of something. And I think that's true for Gamergate as well. A lot of people might even have joined Gamergate not because they agree with the ethics in games journalism or any of the other things. Like, you hate it when you see games journalists trashing good video games just because they're bad at it, right? That's garbage. And you have legitimate reasons to be a part of Gamergate, I guess, if you oppose that. But then there are some people who don't really have strong opinions either way, and you see them sitting on the fence, and they go to one side or the other, whichever allows them to build up their reputation. So they act in a performative way, and they want to feel included. They don't want to feel left out, and the fear of being left out is a real thing. I mean, it's I guess it's documented in a bunch of articles that are. I can't really pull them up right now, but it's really a fear of being left out, and you have to be a part of the zeitgeist, so to speak, if you want to be, if you want to live in the present. That's the thing. Another thing with social justice is like they will know for a fact that what you're saying is not, offensive, but they will assume that you're being offensive, or they'll say that, well, someone might construe it the wrong way, so you have to fix your speech. It's like. That is such, that's policing people's speech, and that's a big reason why I hate that shit.
Right. Yeah, it seems kind of counterintuitive to being a journalist or or somebody that's in a position where they're writing a lot and having that kind of shackle put on you, so to speak.
Yep.
Seems like that might be a problem.
You're walking around in shackles. You can't say anything without fear of pissing someone off. My understanding is this Dix person was harassing, Chera, so Chera decided to go after his job.
Oh, Dix.
But not Dix. Dix is a shop. Yeah, it's a shop.
It's Red Hurricane 24. Then.
Yeah, Dick's Sporting Goods is the place that he was employed at.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, I see. So basically, he outed his job so that, in the hopes to get him fired.
Yes.
Okay. Did it work? I guess it doesn't really matter.
I can't recall. You might have to look for that.
Okay. Well, the point is that the attempt was there. So basically, he outed his place of work to try to get him fired. and basically used the threat of "I won't shop there," as if Ben Kuchera goes to sporting goods stores in the first place.
Yeah, have you seen the guy?
So-
Jesus Christ.
Have you seen this? Have you
He
seen
hasn't
this
never
video?
looked at a weight in his life other than maybe to his mouth, which was food. And
Oh, let's not even go there. Let's look at the video that he released. The one about the guns, the VR game. Like he was like literally triggered at the idea that he, that you use a VR
Oh,
gun.
that's right. I remember that.
Remember
I remember that. Yeah, when he was like talking about the experience of using VR with an actual gun and how terrifying it was. So they're basically just bad-mouthing Brad Wardell here, mostly.
Yeah, the bad mouthing him the whole time. Yeah, mostly. But you can keep reading it. I think it gets juicy at some point.
Okay. Athena, I don't think I bought a Stardock product since window blinds for Windows 98. LOL. Secret Gamer Girl. Well, let me know if he didn't, because yeah, that's the one. Athena, I think I got SOAS from a bundle, if I have it. Tesseract, I heard it wasn't involved with SOASE, which would explain why it's not total shit, but I didn't care for it. I don't know what's SOAS.
That's such a bias. The Sins of a Solar Empire.
Oh, Sins of a Solar Empire, okay.
Yep.
Dr. Internet PhD. They own the IP to my favorite game, so that sucks. Athena Hollow. And
Yeah, that's a funny thing.
Yeah.
That IP is Star Control. He owns it.
Oh, Dr. Internet PhD is Zoe Quinn, right? I think?
Yes, that's right.
'Cause I remember
even
in
on a recent
Yes, in her super
Vice documentary, she's
duper
talking about-
cringy Vox video that she does talk about Star Control
Yeah.
too. So,
Yes. Yep. She's still upset about that.
yeah, it's the end of the world. Secret Gamer Girl. Oh, and I'll just read this shit. I wish he'd like fall off into the screen or something. Wait 10 years for them to randomly sell it off and pool some cash? Dr. Internet PhD, yeah, it went in an auction with a bunch of other IP. Secret Gamer Girl, trying to remember what game I almost bought the rights to once. Athena, gag me with a spoon. Was that written unironically? I don't know which one of you ladies he's referring to, but it's gag-worthy regardless. Quote, if she's going to personally attack me as a scheme to raise funds, then I'm going to call her out. End quote. Quit the ego, dude. Secret Gamer Girl, someone went under and couldn't give stuff away. I want to say it was Bubble Bobble, just rotting on some auction site with nobody touching it. Dr. Internet, Athena, he's talking about me. He has a hate boner about me.
He doesn't have a hate boner about Zoe Quinn. That's ridiculous.
It's about me! It's about me, goddammit! It's me!
Wait, so Ian, are you saying that some of the people in this chat are kind of crazy? Or a little bit unstable, maybe?
When you say
yeah.
this chat, Scott, are you talking about the one we're reading or the one we're
Yes,
speaking
us.
in?
Us four people in here right now.
Oh, well.
No. I'm talking about the logs.
I know.
The logs, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, we are
these people,
a little off.
They see monsters at every corner,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, when you're looking for a boogeyman, everything's going to look like a boogeyman.
Yes.
So,
And when you find Boogeyman, you see Gamergate. Because
well, yeah, obviously.
Alt-right.
Everything is Gamergate's fault because we're all responsible for all the bad things that have ever happened. Not even if you don't identify with it, you still are. Just cuts.
Yeah.
It sounds like you guys are describing a dungeon crawler. Something around, and literally every corner is a Gamergate.
Yeah,
Yes.
pretty much.
It's either when you have an enemy in the world, it's either Gamergate or it's MRAs or it's the alt-right or it's Christians or white people or men or something.
Men.
Yeah.
It's always men.
Men.
Yeah.
White men specifically.
Yes.
The patriarchy.
Yeah.
Yep, there you go.
And,
There you go.
and if you're Asian, you still count as white because we're like Schrodinger's POC.
Well, you guys have higher IQs. Even though IQ was invented by a white guy, it turns out that Asians, especially people who grew up in Hong Kong, have the highest IQs in the entire world.
Yeah.
So
That's interesting.
We just
They're and the Jews. So therefore, they are
There you go.
privileged and they're officially
Gamergate did
they're
9/11.
honorary white people. All right, Remy, he's conveniently ignoring, I don't know, all the women that have left gaming. What do you mean, all the women that have left gaming? I want to know, are there numbers? Where are these people getting this? Like people.
Oh, they're all the people who email Brianna Wu every day. Like 18 times a day. They email her and they say that you've left gaming.
that they've left.
It's all totally in her folder on her desktop.
But you know what I heard? I heard Brianna Wu knows every woman in gaming. Is this true, Ian?
Yes.
Oh yeah, totally. It's absolutely true. She
As-
knows
I
every
heard
woman
that.
in
I heard
gaming.
that on the internet, so it must be true, right?
Yes.
Oh, here, but snark aside, here's a fun fact. I don't know if this is in any of the logs, but you guys remember when Brianna Wu said that she was on a plane and someone had spilt a
Drink on her.
a drink on her bag or something, and she was like, "Do you know who I am? I'm a feminist. I'm the most prominent feminist in video games or some shit like that."
God.
Yeah. Had a public outburst.
Yeah, she's a gem.
The chat, this con had a field day with that. We laughed our asses off. Like, none of us like Brianna. Okay,
Really?
we know she's unstable. Yeah, really.
Oh, hey, let me ask you one thing. Actually, is there any connection between? I mean, not trying to
No.
get into tinfoil territory or anything like that, but is there any kind of tangible connection between FemFreak and Con?
Yes, absolutely.
Really?
Feminist Frequency sponsors con financially.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that's what my whole article is about. Yeah.
Oh wow, how did I miss that? I'm retarded. Sorry.
Yeah. So the start ends at the end. Yeah.
Oh god. Yeah.
Well, that's not at all surprising. We know that Zoe Quinn and Anita have like a common enemy and also a common method for making profit. So of course they would help each other out.
Yeah. They both went to the UN together.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
right. They
they
did.
went to the
I totally
UN
forgot about
together,
that. Yeah.
Oh God, how could you? I can't. I want to.
I'm sorry. There's just so much. I mean, there's so much to remember. It's
It's
like
just-
fucking Christ, man. It's been 2
know,
years of
it's-
just mayhem.
It's not just.
If you believe. Sorry.
Go
you
go
keep
ahead,
going
go
first.
ahead.
Okay, all right. If you believe in addict theory, the idea that you can only store as much information as your brain allows, then all this fucking drama and bullshit, it has stored a huge amount. It has wasted a huge amount of space in our brains.
Yeah, it has. Wasted. Perfect. Yes, perfect word. It is wasted. Lots of space.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Total Biscuit. He's conveniently ignoring all the women who have left gaming, like people don't keep pointing out to the giant gap in hires, and then Total Biscuit's side just yells, "Well, then you need to get more women in the field." Oh, go fuck your circular logic, TV. It's a circle jerk of excuses. That's Athena.
Yeah, they make it sound so simple, as if women don't join the gaming industry because of harassment. That's not the reason. I mean, why don't more men join the fashion industry? It's not because of harassment of men. It's just, it's how we're socialized. It's not even a gender thing. It's just how we're socialized.
Or
growing
just
up. Women
what are the
Yeah.
the fact that we might be biologically different and predisposed to certain
that too. I mean, it could be that
interests.
too.
Yeah.
It's a variety of things, right? A variety of things. One is socialization. Another one is biology. We cannot deny either.
No,
The
only way to get more women into STEM, Ian, is you have to roll out a red carpet. You have to offer it for free. Then you have to make sure that any and all women, especially women of varying colors and body styles and body shapes, and different states of ability and different states of emotional and mental and cognitive ability, are allowed into STEM fields. What we need are more.
What I think is really ridiculous, and
Yeah, go ahead, Margaret.
what ends up being really ridiculous is that their answer is always put more women in the STEM field. Except there already are women in STEM, and honestly, it ends up screwing over the women who are already in STEM or who are already, somewhat related to tech or gaming. So instead of just continually cramming more women into these fields, just maybe you should concentrate for the next couple of years on working with the women who are sort of involved and saying, okay, instead of adding another woman into this group, let's take this other woman who we could train up and train up the women who've already put themselves into that field. Instead of you can't just keep adding more women and expect that to work, because you're adding more women with no skills. You have to take the women with some skills and then add on to their skills. Like that's the practical way of dealing with this.
Mm-hmm. Justin Trudeau brought up Gamergate. And
Yeah, why the
So-
fuck is that guy bringing up Gamergate?
Yeah.
Who the hell cares what Canada thinks anyway?
Right.
Well,
It's just America's top hat. That's
he
all.
wants
So-
Trudeau wants votes. That's just like
Well, yeah.
that's
He
just
wants
paying
to
lip
supporting
service.
young people on Tumblr.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Hillary-
but I mean, can anything positive come of this though? I mean, this is it's. I mean, hopefully, in my mind, I hope that people are seen for kind of kind of who they really are and not this public persona that they put out there. And maybe something good will come of that. But I feel like the media has kind of moved on in large from this. I mean, is there any chance that this might have a positive impact, that there may be, I don't want to say this because it sounds kind of grandiose, but there is some room for vindication of sorts?
I think it might have an impact, maybe not on culture or the media as a whole, but on individuals. I think it will make people less gullible. Like they'll see the words anti-harassment organization, and then they'll think twice. They'll question it. Like, who are the founders? What are their motives? Are they doing anything else? I think people will start to question the narrative that's being fed to them, because it's very easy to watch a thing on TV and that tells you something, and then realize that in being a part of it, that the truth couldn't be further from the opposite. So
Right.
it's like I think people will open their minds, start thinking for themselves. They won't, be so eager to just jump onto any narrative. Like, if the news says something, then maybe that's not entirely true. Maybe you should do your own research, And I don't mean go to Alex Jones straight up,
What do you mean water filters aren't real? Come on, Ian.
I'm trying to be nice here.
Because to just kind of, not to be too, silly, but a lot of this is kind of devolved into shut up and take my money when it comes to people. They throw these like misogyny dog whistles out there, and then people are like, oh, let me support their Patreon because they're doing the work against the evil patriarchy and da-da-da-da. But it kind of feels like that kind of this thing kind of devolved into that.
It's utterly unconscionable the way we treat transgender people as gamers. The transphobia of Gamergate particularly shows how shitty we are. And I guess, so people are writing, Brianna disgustingly took a tragic event and used it to bash gamers. Why does Space Cat Gal think she speaks for trans women? She does not. So people are arguing with her. Oh, so yeah, they're not happy about that. Hence your thing that says, I think this tweet got people mad. Okay, that one, I thought it was the one where she told her trans followers to not call someone transphobic. Remy, I was also stoked when that news agency checked out the lead and confirmed Leela's note. Ian, well, Izzy, KIA, Kotaku in action, is saying that she found a way to blame Gamergate for Leela's death, and that's blah, 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 blah. People infer a lot of stupid things. Izzy, well, I have that screenshot of Gigi trying to use Leela's death to improve their public image. They are worse. This. And then a tweet. Izzy hasn't banned me yet. I feel like I haven't done enough.
Are you not a major enough e-celeb to be banned, Brian?
You should definitely preemptively block him, because seriously, he is the kind of person who goes through people's timelines and reports everything and gets people banned.
So I should just block him.
That's what he does
to avoid.
Yeah.
I don't want that to happen.
Any complications?
Gamergate, here's a better idea. Stop being transphobic. Stop. What does this have to do with Gamergate? Simple. This is our chance to show our supporters are not transphobic. We are not a hate group, and we should show our support for Leela by raising money for a trans charity and letting her mother's employer know she was abusive. Leela was popular on Tumblr and posted her suicide note there. This is our chance to show some of our biggest opponents that we are supporting a better future for everyone. So basically, them even making an effort to help someone obviously is not enough to convince anybody that they're good, because they're Gamergate, and these people have already decided it. In fact, if you think about it, if you're someone who has already decided that Gamergate is transphobic and evil, when they actually try to do something that's good for them, you think they're only doing it to cover up the fact that they're transphobic and evil. Like, they're just doing it.
These fuckers.
Go ahead.
They did it to Total Biscuit. When he retweeted some charity stream for some game or something, right? It was for disabilities, I think. Can't remember exactly what it was, but he retweeted it. The guy who runs that organization got pissed off at him. It's like, please unretweet it because all the Gamergators are retweeting it now.
Right. People trying to help something. People trying to help a good cause, and the guy got fucking butt blasted about it. And was like, no, don't do this because we don't like your kind. Oh, really?
Yeah. I know, it's fucked up, right? For a good cause, and so now you're actively depriving children or whoever the fuck needs it, because you have politics and political issues. And worse yet, people accused him of weaponizing charity. Like they always use that term,
Yeah.
weaponizing charity. How the fuck do you weaponize charity?
Weaponized activism. Weaponized tweets. Didn't they call that weaponized tweets? Yeah.
Yeah, weaponized
Low yield
Yeah.
nuclear tweeting. Pretty sure Brianna deleted all the tweets that really got people upset real shortly after. What? Gamergate supporters have long suspected that collusion between the press and individuals opposed to the movement was at play. It may sound like a tinfoil hat conspiracy at first glance, but the chat logs reveal that Crash Override Network had ties to games journalist websites like Polygon. Despite the group's relationship with the media, Zoe Quinn expressed disdain for a Boston Magazine reporter who asked her difficult questions and attempted to suppress the publication of his story. So I want to look at this link here about the attempt to suppress. Okay, so Zoe Quinn, the Boston Magazine reporter who asked me to talk about my relationship with Aaron Gianni. Pre-Gamergate is still going ahead with the story. Dina, Mighty Number 9, by the way, the game I was looking forward to until I heard about her. Zoe Quinn, despite being told not to multiple times. Dina, what the fuck? Zoe, and has already interviewed Aaron Gianni. Dina, what the fuck? She's just really good with the WTFs. Live Riot Arms, ugh.
Got a big vocabulary.
Zoe Quinn, I am trying to write a response that isn't just please fuck off forever. Can y'all give me some advice? I can copy paste the correspondence. I.e., can y'all give me some advice means, can you write the thing that I want to write, but I don't want to write right now? Yay, Marxism. I can copy paste the correspondence. That's redistribution of ideas. SF, as always, you're put in a position where you're forced to be a saint when you shouldn't have to be. Live Riot.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Zoe Quinn is saint. Wow.
Yeah.
My signs, where are they? I cannot find them.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
No, this is just... This is more taint licking. Live Riot Arms. The internet has given people some bizarre and harmful ideas about privacy. What? Wait! Did you guys literally just say that shit unironically?
Yeah, it's unironic, yeah.
Zoe Quinn.
Man.
Spam incoming. Okay, Charlotte, Chloe ending up in the ER is apparently faking suicide. Chloe, I know who that is, I think. Wait.
Yeah,
That's the woman that drew the Steven Universe stuff without permission, is that right? Is that...
No, that's not
okay.
her. No, this is Chloe Siegel. Chloe Siegel.
Stengel. Yeah.
Siegel.
Or
Yeah,
Siegel. Okay.
Siegel. Yeah, Siegel. She was the person interviewed by Destructoid writer Elsa Pinsoff. He ruined his career over it, or rather, SJW's ruined his career because he wrote about her game and her Kickstarter, where I think it was Indiegogo or something, right? And she said that she needed money for surgery, a life-altering surgery, because she had a life-threatening disease or some nonsense, right? Turns out that she was actually, doing it to get a transgender,
get a
reassignment.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was basically a con, right? Because she conned people.
To be a lot of that going around.
Right, and so he reported this story, and it basically got her. I mean, when word came out, all the backers, withdrew the money. Some of them reported it, and it got the whole thing shut down. And he lost his job over it at Destructoid. He got blacklisted from the whole industry because everybody was upset that he had outed a trans person. But in truth, and I was one of the people who actually shit on him publicly, and I'm very sorry for that. Alistair, if you're listening, I would like to talk to you at some point.
Who?
But yeah, Alistair Pinsoff, the guy who wrote the article.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, the Destructoid guy. So I mean, the game journalists, I didn't personally blacklist him or anything, but he was blacklisted and he can no longer find a job in the game industry because of that thing. But he was just doing his due diligence as a journalist.
People that are supposed to be journalists are engaging in this kind of behavior. And, we're seeing it more and more and more where it's like, well, I don't want to call them journalists. We'll just call them bloggers because basically that's all they are, because they really have no concept of what journalistic integrity or any of these other types of things are. But these people are doing real damage because the average person sees something like that Boston article and they think that person is a journalist and they are upholding their standards. You know, it's kind of like the same thing. It's like, well, it's on TV, truth in advertising must be true. It's that same kind of thing, and I think people have a really gross distortion of what actual journalism is. And to me, this is really, really troubling. You know, I used to work in the news. I worked for NBC long ass time ago. I fucking, you know, did various other things here and there. And I don't presume to call myself a journalist, but I think I'm familiar enough with these things that when I see them, it really bothers me. And I think the average person, I wish they kind of understood why this is a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially when you have correspondences like this, where essentially you have the subject of your article dictating how the article's written.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, fucking, that's insane. That doesn't happen. That's not how it works.
I mean, it would be like if the New York Times or something were to get in touch with Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, and basically, Donald Trump's his people or Hillary Clinton's people told them exactly what to write.
Yeah,
that's what's happening here. On a smaller scale.
I was just gonna say, if you read, if we get to the rest of it, you can see that essentially it's all about. I don't feel safe with you guys writing things like journalists might do it, so let's spin it so that I feel safer after it's done. And
well, I mean, it's like the joke image macro about Kotaku. Kotaku says nothing's going on here, and then you see the bottom of the citation, Kotaku. It's just like, it's like, oh, come fucking on now.
Question everything, I mean, when a person says that they're anti-harassment, question it. What are their motives? Are they really anti-harassment? Is there really any harassment going on? Question everything that you see, and don't buy into narratives just because it's easy or convenient to do so. Don't do it just because your friends do it. Just look for the truth. Think for yourself. And of course, I'm not saying be like crazy and like be suspicious of everything, but use your mind. Like if a person's being harassed or they claim something's happening to them, ask yourself, is this actually happening? Look into it. Yeah. Don't just take people's word for it. Trust, but verify.
Oh, Ronald Reagan said that. He's Republican.
Oh God, you're alt-right.
You have to disagree. You're alt-right. Ian Miles Chong, alt-right confirmed. Where's your red pet base? All right. No, but I agree. Trust, verify. It's a good way to go. We hope you enjoyed this clip show. If there was a clip from these shows that you think we should have shown, please leave a comment on the video and include a timestamp. Thank you, and Badger on.